Welcome to the Virtual Career Connections. I'm Noelle Codispati with the Risk and Insurance Education Alliance, and I'm joined by Amber Carver with Burns & Wilcox for this wonderful session on boss moves, what every future business owner needs to know. Welcome, Amber.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, Amber, we've been grateful to speak with you before about your role with Burns & Wilcox. You're a broker,
Right.
and we're talking today about how you help businesses. Our audience is generally young professionals in high school or the university, so we want to give them a sense of what it's like, what they might need to know if they're going to be a business owner and how brokers might help them. So what is something that I think most people don't realize about what it takes to keep a business running successfully?
So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to owning a business and operating one, but for the insurance piece, I can speak to. So, as far as insurance, there's so many different lines of business of insurance that I don't think the average person understands or even contemplates, right? And so every business is going to need the most obvious general liability. And that's something that we definitely help with. So that's going to cover their operations and just their business itself. But they might also own a building, or they might rent space from a building. So they're going to need property insurance, which also could include covering their contents or their business income exposures. It could be a business that it sells liquor liability. So like a bar, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. So they have a liquor liability component to that to be in compliance. They could be a professional that has to have professional liability. So think doctors for medical malpractice, or an assisted living facility, or even someone like a Medi-Spa that's doing chemical pills and permanent makeup on their faces, that has a professional component. So we need to have that coverage. If they're using an auto within their business, they might need a commercial auto policy. If they need higher limits, they're going to need an excess policy. If it's a condo association, for instance, they've got a board of directors, they're going to need directors and officers insurance. So, I mean, there's just so many different lines of business that I don't think the average person knows, and that is our job to educate and make sure that they're covered properly.
So if a student's thinking now about potentially being a business owner in the future, why is it, is it important for them to learn about risks and insurance? You mentioned all the different types of insurance they will need. Why should they learn about it now?
Because to cover their assets and make sure that their business is lasting, right? So they have a catastrophic loss and they don't have the correct insurance in place, they're not going to be able to rebuild their business or sustain their business to be back up and operating. So if they say that their building burned down and they didn't have the right coverage, well, where are they going to run their business from? Or, something along those lines. So that's where the insurance piece comes in. Not to mention the reputational harm that comes with it, and insurance can help with that as well. So say there was a business that did something bad to the public or to the consumer, and it affected many people, or maybe it just affected one and they wanted to write a whole bunch of terrible Google reviews or whatever. Insurance can mitigate against that before it snowballs into that problem, right? And so I think thinking forward that way, that we're trying to protect the risk that they have before it becomes a major problem.
Yeah, I think that's the part I love about insurance is that at least when you think about it from what people don't really understand, if you haven't worked in the businesses, there's just so much going on and so much to contemplate. It's not just what you see on commercials or think about from a personal perspective. It is an embedded part of what we do all around us.
Right.
So how does you've mentioned this a little bit, but the role of the broker working with a business, how do you work with businesses as a broker in insurance?
So, they would bring their company or their exposures to us and say, this is what I've got. I need insurance. And generally they don't know what kind of insurance they need or they think, I want insurance, cover me. We want everything covered. And in reality, that just isn't how insurance works, right? Every product has different coverages, different exclusions, different purposes. And so it's our job to educate them and make sure that we're providing them with the adequate coverage that they need to help them with their business.
I would imagine it's pretty fun on your side. You get to learn about all sorts of different industries and how things work.
Yes.
not something we discussed talking about, but is there an industry that you find more fascinating to work on than others, or things that you've learned about that you think are interesting over the years?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, right? We see in my marketplace, we see things that are harder to place or things that don't really qualify for the standard line carrier. So the things that have either loss problems or just kind of wonky things that are just different. So yeah, I see stuff like that all the time. I've learned a ton about the construction industry and things that I would have never known. I mean, things about cranes that I would never know. Just things that you just don't know until you research it and look at it, or just exposures that exist that you just don't think about unless you're kind of embedded in it. And that is what's really exciting about what we do. It's never the same every day, even though you might write a whole book of contractors. They all have their own little differences and needs. And so to research that is kind of exciting and fun.
Yeah, and I imagine too, or I don't imagine, I know, that people with different interests, I mean, you could have an interest in construction, or maybe you were a civil engineering major or something like that. And those types of skill sets and interests and passions are really important in insurance, in your line as a broker, or some of the other brokers or underwriters that you work with. So you can bring any kind of passion to this industry, and it's useful.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. I think the more knowledge you have behind something, the better you can help them and know about the risks that are lurking out there that might not be identified. And that's what's exciting about what we do. We can craft a policy to the needs of the client, right? And so we can manuscript forms, or we can do different things to make sure their unique exposures can be covered.
Yeah, and you've done such a great job of, building the reputation of the office that you work in at Burns and Wilcox, and becoming a trusted advocate for your clients. How do you build that trust with the folks that you're working with?
Well, thank you for that. And I would say, obviously, relationships are the key, right? I mean, relationships are what makes the world go around anyways, but I think especially in this industry, that's what it all comes down to. You have to have that trust and understanding with each other, and that just comes with building relationships and making sure that is in place. I think repeat customers come to you because they do trust you, and you do provide them with the solutions and the needs that they have, and give them the service that they need. That's a huge part of it, because a lot of businesses don't give you a whole lot of lead time because they don't understand it. So they have a contract that's requiring X, and it happens right now, but they can't get on this job until they have this met, right? So it's a need that they have immediately. And so if we aren't reactive and helpful right away, we've either missed that opportunity, or we've screwed up their contracts that they don't like us anymore. So there's so many things that we have to be on top of our game about. And that's something that I personally pride myself on as our service. And we want to make sure we're providing that awesome service to everybody so they can, run their businesses efficiently.
Yeah, no, this has been wonderful. I think for our audience listening, for those considering potentially coming into the industry, what your perspective provides is, showcasing not only the importance of the risk and insurance industry to future business owners, but also the opportunity to have a really meaningful career, whether it's as a broker or in one of those lines of businesses that provides insurance that you also mentioned. So, and it's a people business. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to really, shine through and engage and develop a really strong skill set and a career base. And so I appreciate you joining us today and sharing those insights. And, we look forward to having you on again for maybe another Career Connections episode, or, talking about all the wonderful things you do with your clients at Burns and Wilcox.
Well, I'd be glad to. And thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, Amber.
Bye-bye.